Hey, hello there. So today we're doing a little sort of Sonic Talk impromptu special. You might remember on Sonic Talk a few weeks back we talked about the story of the Resynator, which was a kind of very unusual piece of technology, quite a rare piece of technology, and the Kickstarter that Alison Tavel, is that how I pronounce it, Alison?
That's fine. Tavel,
Tavel,
whatever.
Alison Tavel, you're basically making a documentary about the Resonator, and you, in a bizarre coincidence, you happen to live like right up the street from Tara Busch, who we have here as well, who coincidentally has just launched a major Patreon campaign. How are you, Tara?
Yes. Hello. Hi.
I should probably put a screenshot of that up there. Patreon, yes, you can find out about Patreon at Tara's Patreon. And also, there's the Resynator Kickstarter, which is actually doing really, really well. So perhaps we could kind of rewind a little bit, because we did cover the story a little bit. You're Alison, you're Don Tavel's daughter. And, the story is obviously, he passed away when you were very, very small. And you kind of discovered that he'd been working on this stuff, right? So perhaps you could just give us a bit of that in your own words.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up thinking that my dad invented the resonator. I mean, I think I found out that that wasn't true when I was about 9. But I never knew I knew he invented a synthesizer,
Right.
but I didn't know anything more than that. And then I started touring, not as a musician. I'm not a musician. I started working for a musician named Grace Potter. And when I was on tour with her, I just kind of felt a new inspiration to figure out what exactly it was that he invented. And so we had some time off tour, and I knew that the resonator was at my grandma's house in her attic, and waited for that minute to get off tour and fly there and dig it out. And when I was in the attic, I was looking for a keyboard because I don't have a background in synthesizers, and I thought that keyboards were synthesizers. So when I found this black box with a bunch of knobs on it, I was just very confused and overwhelmed. But I found the guy that my dad had worked with to build this unit. His name's Mike Beagle. He's the founder of Mutron, and he lives like 2 hours south of me in LA. So I was really lucky, and he was super helpful and helped me resurrect it.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but I mean, the thing about the Resynator is it's actually really kind of advanced technology. I mean, it was very early DSP, which, we massively take for granted now. So when you think synthesizers from the 70s and the early 80s, you're thinking analog, but this is a kind of hybrid of both. It's a very unusual machine, right?
Yeah, so my dad was really into computer uses for music and art. So he was a musician himself. He grew up in Indiana and just wanted to figure out a way to make an instrument that he could play, I guess is what he was calling. The slogan, I think, at one point was "for musicians by musicians," and so it was.
Wow, that's our tagline.
Really?
Yeah, that's our tagline for Sonicstate. How bizarre! Look at that.
That's amazing. I'll see if I can find the old flyer that I found that on. But yeah, that was his deal. So it's an instrument controlled pitch tracking synth, and it's an analog synthesizer, but he invented the code that tracks the pitch digitally. So it's a digital pitch tracking synth, but then it gets converted to analog. So you get the digital accuracy and you get analog sound and feel. And the tracking is really good.
It's amazing. I mean, and that, it's sort of gone into legend because apparently there are only sort of 8 or 10 of the original racks made. So it's incredibly rare. And the fact that you found one in your grandmother's, maybe even less, really.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I don't know the exact number. I think it was probably less though. Because I know 3 of them went to Peter, which is why I was over in the UK.
Right, Peter Gabriel, right, okay.
I had one, and then Mike Beagle had like a half-built one, which is so now we've got 2 units built. One original and one, it's still original, but we built it. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So Tara, you've, as with the history of this project, it seems to have been that throughout its project, when it's been working, it's been put in front of musicians, and you're one of the very fortunate and lucky people to actually have a play with it. I mean, what were your first impressions? I mean, we know you're really into synth, so the chance to be able to actually play with a synth that is almost nobody has ever had a go on, it's got to be great, right?
Yeah, it's very satisfying. But it's really really quite versatile, and I really love anything that's pitch tracking as a singer, anything that can transform your voice. So it's really, really a lot of fun to sing through. That's the first thing I automatically did with it. And then started running drum machines through it. And that was really when the magic really kicks off, because it really takes on a bit of a crazy character when you do that. I've never heard anything like it. It's
So
just this crazy, glitchy, totally unpredictable, really, really almost a collaborative feeling with a machine instead of, because it's a little out of control, but in a great way. So it just kind of throws sounds back at you, and you turn the knobs, like a synth as usual. So it's very unusual sounding.
It tracks it, but it has like a couple of oscillators and some kind of shaping as well. I was very intrigued by the term timbral image modulation.
Yeah. There's a couple of things on here that, like, terms that my dad just made up, and I mean, I guess that was probably pretty normal. All the other synth companies probably made up their own terms for filters and stuff, but because this never really went anywhere, nobody's heard of these before. So the ones that he made up are FXO, which is the other oscillator, the effects oscillator, and then CM synthesis, which was supposed to be like a step above frequency modulation. It's complex modulation. And then the timbral image modulator, there's 8 different waveforms, and some of them look normal and some of them don't, because I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he combined a couple different waveforms to create organic new waveforms. There's an AES paper that kind of describes each shape and his intention behind each one. But I have audio of my dad playing this in 1981, and he's playing it with the guitar, and he's going seamlessly from an oboe sound to a bassoon to a tuba to a flute to a piccolo, and he's got a bunch of so all of these jacks in the front panel bypass the knobs. So he didn't even have to take his hand off the guitar. He was talking about it, playing his guitar, and pushing all these foot pedals. And so he was able to just seamlessly go from one sound to another. And then like the sounds that everybody likes are the wormy synthy sounds. But back then, to hear a trumpet sound like a trumpet, I think was really cool.
Right, that's really interesting. So Tara, I know you've got like a demo set up. I mean, the dynamics of the thing that interests me is the only other thing that I know of that does this kind of thing from that era is the MS-20, the Korg MS-20, which I'm sure is that one you got in the corner there. I mean, that's great for singing through, right? The pitch tracking is very organic and unusual. I mean,
you can actually make really raunchy bass lines with your voice through that. So
absolutely. So, I mean, how would you describe the kind of the folk? I mean, have you got, is that an 808 going through it at the moment?
Correct. Yes.
So what's it doing? Is it tracking the actual, so it's trying to track the pitch of the drums and the dynamics. Okay. So this is that you've got 2 of these guys here, right? Which is kind of crazy because they are only 2 working. So you kind of, you represent the entire stock level of the Resynator in the world at the moment. Wow. Awesome.
Well, I built the second one. I built this because of my trip to the UK. So when I got the chance to meet with Peter Gabriel, because I found out his company Psychosystems had bought 3 in 1980, I didn't want to fly all the way to the UK from here with just one working unit. I mean, these things break, and especially if I'm flying with it a bunch and going through cobblestone streets and stuff, I was like, I have to have a backup in case one of them stops working. So when I found out that I was able to get over there, I called up Mike Beagle and his partner, Richard Lingenberg, who they got together and figured out how to get the second one up and running for me. So now I've got 2, which is great.
Nice. So, okay, let's have a look at what's going on here. So you've got the 808. That's an original 808, right, Tara? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so...
temperamental start-stop button.
Okay, so is it going to work? I don't know.
It will work. I just have to bang it a bit.
Okay.
So basically, it's let's make sure it's loud enough.
So is that the entire output going in, or just a trigger? Or?
It is the entire output. So I'm just turning everything down, except for. just the kick drum,
Right.
and then this
And
is
that's
bringing
pitch track. So is the pitch we're hearing there from the actual oscillator of the synth of the resonator?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also the pitch of the kick drum too, and I've tuned this to this. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So tuning, I think, is here. Alison could probably correct me because I don't really know.
That's the tuning. That tunes the FXO to the VCO.
See?
Oh, let's get a bit closer there and see what you're doing. Oh, that's nice.
So, and then when I bring in the hi-hat, sorry. When I bring in the hi-hat, it starts to, you know, it's trying to
it's trying to track the pitch, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Bringing in other elements, like a snare. With the little the timbral image modulators. So kind of.
Oh, that's like filter, almost filter kind of.
Yeah,
AM.
it's like envelope filter kind of, you know. I think. You can mess with the rate on it too. And actually, the filter sounds fucking great.
Oh my lord! I realise it's about 8 o'clock in the morning where you are. I hope the neighbours are tolerant.
Our neighbors are gonna kill us.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Right, okay.
Come on, there. It'll stop. But to me, yeah, I think the filter almost sounds a bit 303-ish. In a way, if you probably, it's very tweaky, shrieky, but warm. It's lovely.
I'm sure the question that I'm going to ask, almost everybody that's heard about this is going to ask, is: are you going to be making it again? Is it going to be something that's going to be available? Right?
Yeah, I've come across a lot of angry people going to the Kickstarter, being like, "I thought I was here to purchase a synth," and and maybe one day I'll never do a Kickstarter for that. I mean, this Kickstarter has been so rewarding, but so much work. But the idea is, yes, I do want to either re-release or reproduce resonators, either a new hardware version or a new software version, or a very small run of originals. I mean, there's a lot of parts in here that they don't make anymore, so it would have to be like a very limited run. But I want to get the story out there first. The reason why I have any want to reproduce these is because I've been learning about my dad, and I want to do it for him. Like, I want to do what he would want, and I wouldn't have cared about this 4 years ago. So I owe it to the story and to the documentary. I want to get the story out there first and then figure out what happens. Also because some people know about the Resynator and I'm sure would love to have it, but nobody really knows about it yet. So I want to get the story out there first and raise awareness, and then hopefully that will create a platform for me to figure out the right way to re-release them or reproduce them.
Yeah, I understand. So, I suppose, as with kind of many classic analog and sort of vintage electronica, there's this sort of heritage of, oh, that track used it, that's the sound of it. I mean, is there any of that in existence? Because they were so rare that very few people have actually got to use it for recording, right?
Well, so there's two. When I was over there to meet with Peter, he was so awesome and had reached out to a bunch of people that used to work at Psychosystems, and also just a bunch of his friends, like asking people, do you remember this thing from the 80s? It was at the Psychosystems demo house in London. There were 3 of them. Does anybody remember anything? And he reached, I don't know if it's okay to say this or not, but he reached out to Brian Eno, and he said, oh, the Psycho Resynator, I had it. I used it on a bunch of stuff. And then kind of took it back and said, oh, I'm thinking of something else. So I want to get back in touch with Brian and say, like, I'm not looking to interview you or anything. I just want to know if you had one, and if you did, what you might have used it on.
Well, you did.
And then the other person that I did get confirmation that he had one and used it is John Anderson of Yes. I found an empty envelope in my dad's box, like in the attic, it was addressed to my dad from France, 1982, John Anderson. And so I was always trying to get in touch with him just to see like what the correspondence was, because there's no letter in the envelope. It's just an empty envelope. But I got in touch with him through a friend, and he said, yes, I had one, and I used it on the, he said he always liked to use it on the far off days to make like big choir sounds. But then I could never get back in touch with him to say, do you remember what songs? Do you still have it? Where did you get yours? So it's like an ongoing investigation. But the thing is, the Resynator can sound like anything. And so it's really hard to pinpoint where it is.
Right.
My friends, my friend Sam Stewart is in this band, this amazing band called Low Moon. It's LOMOON. And like 4 years ago, the Resynator had just been resurrected, maybe 3 years ago. And I was about to go on tour, and he was about to make his first record. And I just gave him the Resynator. I said, here, use this. And he and the producer, Chris Walla, and the synth player or the bass player in the band, Chris Santa, they all use the Resynator a bunch on the first Low Moon record. The main song that it's on is a song called Thorns. And I have that song on my Kickstarter page. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this song. This is so cool. Where is the Resynator? And I like listened to it a bunch, and I was like, that could be it, or that could be it. And I reached out to Sam, and I was like, where is the Resynator? And he was like, I don't actually know. It's in there. But like, it's, you know, it's mixed in with all the other stuff. There's tons of cool sounds on that track and in that album. So I don't know where it is. It's very hard to pinpoint. An easy song to find it is in Grace Potter's cover of David Bowie's song As the World Falls Down, which is also on the Kickstarter page and in the teaser video. It's the last song you hear. It's the very first thing you hear. It's the only thing you hear. And so that's they did that with a guitar, and it's so it's very easy to hear the Resynator. But I also I also have a like history of the Resynator animated video on the page, and that does that has a trumpet demo. My friend Stuart, we ran his trumpet through the Resynator, and it's also scored entirely using the Resynator. So I did
the history of the Resynator. Right, okay, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Brilliant. That's fantastic.
The whole video is scored with Resynator sounds that came from a session I did with Fred Armisen. He did vocals, guitar, drums, and bass through it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So Tara, I was going to ask you, I mean, obviously with pitch tracking stuff, one of the things that always it's like when you start to do it with basses, things start to get a bit slow. And have you noticed how it is for latency? Because this is such early DSP. You can imagine, it might be considerable, but if it's not, that's another impressive testament to the code.
Like it has some latency. I really don't.
Oh, wow.
I think, not that I notice, unless it's something that just sounds cool and I don't realize it's latency. I mean, so that makes through it. But yeah, I've got it hooked up for vocals. We can also run a synth through it as well. I can just take down the 808 and throw the Pro 1 through it or something.
So Tara, this is where the magic happens, where the your newly launched Patreon output is all coming from, yeah?
Correct. Yes. It's I've been spending a lot of time in here locked away, but so we do with the Patreon, we put out a cover every month that comes out on 7-inch vinyl and digital, and we have a bunch of different tiers that people can choose from. The vinyl tier is surprisingly popular. And there's also a collaborative tier where I work with people doing vocals and synths, and I've had a few people sign up for that, which is awesome. And it's actually done really well. Like Maph and I were expecting maybe our moms will sign up and be awesome. But it's mainly, it's just people a lot of people that we don't know and fans, and
it's really interesting.
Cool.
Have you found that, I mean, that whole thing about, committing to a monthly release, I mean, is that actually worse than being signed to a label because you created this kind of like monster that you then have to feed?
Yeah, it's a good monster though, because I feel like I like monsters. But It's actually enforced a kind of regimen on me, and I'm someone that works really well with limitations.
Okay.
Instead of having, I need a framework. I'm basically a kindergartner, or whatever the equivalent in the UK is, infant school. I just need I need a really solid framework, and then I can go crazy from there. But,
okay.
It's really helped us both be a lot more creative. So, and then we'll go from there. Maybe release more stuff. Maybe more I Speak Machine stuff through Patreon, but we're still with Lex too, so we're kind of working all of that out. But it was just a really good way to get things going.
So what have you got? What do you got plugged in here? Then you plug the mic into the front of the resonator.
Well, what's happening is I've got the mic going into the 104M Mogerfoger, whatever the fucker. And it goes in here just to boost the signal.
Right, okay.
Because otherwise you really have to, it's just like the MS-20, you really have to...
You got to give it a line level to give it a decent level.
Into it for it to even pick the signal up. So it goes through this first just to give it a boost. And then, I'm not sure I've got this hooked up right, but I'm looking. Okay, so let me take a second and see if my output...
And then when I did vocals through it for my other Facebook Live... The CM synthesis was way better than the sync, but
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I think this one.
Oh, here we go. It's starting to happen now.
A little better.
Oh, that's interesting.
What's that like? I've not heard that.
It's like it's very dynamic, isn't it?
And then you can go quite low.
Wow. It's interesting. It's still quite visceral, isn't it? It's still got that MS-20-ish quality of sort of anything that articulates well from a vocal. I mean, yeah. I just love the idea of that. I mean, the concept of being able to use your voice to actually go straight to source rather than have to sort of mumble an idea into a dictaphone and then remember what it was and then create it in a synth or whatever it is. That's quite liberating, I'd imagine.
Well, when I was I took the Resynator to Colombia. There was this synth producer guru that lives in the mountains of Minca. And I was going down there to go see a Rolling Stones show. And like 2 weeks before I left, I found out that this guy exists and that he wanted to use the Resynator. So I brought the Resynator with me on my trip, and it turned into like the most fun holiday I've ever been on. But while I was down there, he introduced me to this band Sistema Solar, and they had a demo song that they were working on called Que Paso. And when they were doing the demo, they didn't have a bass. So he just did the bass line, just as scratch with his voice. And when I brought the Resynator, he was like, well, let's just run my vocals through the, run the vocal track through the Resynator. We started to do that. And he was like, oh no, let's just do live vocals through it. And so the song has his voice is doing the bass line. And it's my most favorite song. And it's in the teaser video. It's on the page. I've listened to it 10,000 times. It's really, really cool. And it was awesome to see him do it live. And then when he turned everything off, I was asking, because this was like one of my first times using the Resynator or seeing it being used. And I was like, all those sounds, like some of those were pre-recorded, right? And they were like, no, that's all live. And I was blown away by it.
Mm.
Wow, fantastic. Well, so what's next then? I mean, you've reached your first goal on the Kickstarter campaign, which got there pretty quick. And so the next stage, when you get to your next bit, I'm just going to scroll up because so you're at about $50,000 and you were trying to get what, $30,000? It's showing me in pounds. So hold on.
Yeah,
30,000. So what's next? I mean, what's the document? What's the next part of the journey? You know, what's the next phase?
So I set a $30,000 goal because I've never done a Kickstarter before, and I had no idea if this would be successful or if people would connect to it. And so I reached 30,000 within the first week, which was awesome. The $30,000 and $50,000 goals get me to pretty much finish production on a super budget. So that at least I know that I can wrap the filming aspect of this project. I have probably the rest of this year to film. And with this budget, I can stay on track to finish filming it. And I have more interviews that I want to film, more musician demos that I want to do. And I want to build a song with one of my dad's heroes. I don't know who yet, but I have some ideas. I want to make a tribute song to my dad using only the Resynator and some vocals. And so that's going to be a very expensive shoot because it's going to involve a lot of session players and musicians and a recording studio, and we're going to be producing and making a song. So that's what I want to film. And that's where the $50,000 milestone brings us to. The $75,000 is something that would allow me to introduce animation into the project. My dad was really interested in rotoscoping and like enhancing rotoscoping using computers. And he invented some code that allowed you to duplicate the rotoscoping process without having to do it manually. And he called it the animation station. I found a newspaper clipping talking about it. And so I think just to keep in line with his vision, if I'm going to use animation, it should be animation that he was into. So a $25,000 budget could allow me to get a pretty decent rotoscope. I mean, animation's so expensive. It's insane. So it would still be on a tight budget, but it would allow me the opportunity to at least incorporate a little bit of rotoscoping into the project, which it'll just really help to tell the story of the Resynator and my dad through little bits and pieces of animation. And then the real goal is $100,000. That's what I've been setting my sights on since I started this campaign, because films are very expensive to make. You can obviously do it on a budget, but I want to release something that I'm proud of, and I want a quality product, and I want it to be film festival worthy. And I want production companies to come knocking on my door wanting to help with this project. So I think that, the more I can raise, the higher quality product I can release. So I've got 20 days left, I think. So I'm very hopeful.
Well, I'll try and get this edited up as quickly as possible, obviously, to help with that. But
and also, there was one thing I wanted to clear up. I was watching you and Jamie Liddell talk about the emails that I had sent him.
Oh, right.
Like you were Skyping with him. So I had emailed him like 3 years ago, and I was just telling him about the different models that I have. So this is the rack mount monophonic version. The thing he was talking about is the Hexynator, which is not resurrected yet, but I want to resurrect it. It's the polyphonic version of the Resynator, and it had 6 Resynator boards in it and a hex
for a guitar, right?
A Roland G707 board or whatever in it. And so that is, I think I was telling him about it, and he might have combined the two. So there's a Hexynator that will eventually.
So you've got the entire product range ready to go. You've got to make the documentary, then you release the Resynator and the Hexynator, and then who knows what. But thank you so much. Yeah, why not? Why ever not?
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways, if anybody's interested, there's a lot of ways to interact with the Resynator on the rewards. Like further down, you can book a studio session with it. I'll come to you. There's you can send me your stems. I just had somebody send buy this Resonate Your Stems reward, where he's a mandolin player and he's going to send me his mandolin stem, and I'm going to resonate it. And then there's Skype sessions, and Grace Potter's doing a workshop in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of different ways that you can physically interact with the Resynator or digitally interact with the Resynator.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and lovely to have you on. So I hope that, well, now you've got the whole of your day ahead of you. See, I mean, there is one advantage to getting up early to fit in with UK time. And that means you have the full day now.
I'm going back to bed.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
Good to see you.
Do stay in touch as well, and I'll be calling on you, Tara. I'm coming for you on Sonic Talk. I want to see you on there soon. Okay, thank you guys.
Miss you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.